charges brought up against you in South Africa?
Yes.
Were there charges brought up against you in the United States?
Yes.
Have you ever spent time in prison?
Yes.
Have you ever been involved in illegal activity?
Yes.
Have you ever been involved in narcotics?
Yes.
Have you ever been involved in fraud?
Yes.
Who are you?
I was exposed as the spy for the US. I moved from helicopters and parts into smuggling hundreds of millions of cigarettes into Europe, and then from cigarettes went into narcotics. Looking back, I was just this little chess piece in the bigger US government puzzle that they're solving on Iran. I heard a guy behind me saying, "Are you Barry Oberholzer?" And I turned around and I said, "Yes." And he said, "You're under arrest." It was federal agents from the United States Postal Inspection Service. You are used as a pawn. They make you believe you're the star player, but you're not. I was in solitary confinement for 97 days. Everything that I touched turned into gold. I got an email from a guy in Iran, and he said, "I want to buy 15 helicopters from you. I cannot go on my own and smuggle 10 tons of cocaine." The more I got into that high, the more my emotions became zero. Are you out of your fucking mind? You're going to end up in prison. My name is Barry Oberholzer. Some of you might know me as the Flying Felon. February 9th, 2021. My kids got ready for school. I was in the kitchen and our doorbell rang, and I looked on the Ring app and it was federal agents from the United States Postal Inspection Service. And I answered and she said, "Are you Barry Oberholzer?" I said, "Yes." She said, "We have a warrant of your arrest. You need to open up the gate." And she said, "We can do this the good way or we can do this the not so good way." And I said, "No, I'll take the good way." And she said, "Okay, I said, "Can I see your warrant?" And she said, "Here's the warrant." And as she flipped the page through my gate, it was actually the warrant for Jeremy as well. And so both our pictures were on there. And I saw Jeremy's picture and I was like, I knew immediately what it was about. It was in relation to his bank statements that he sent me, and the way the government framed it was like, I knew that he falsified his bank statements, and he just sent me the bank statements, and I said, "Yeah, that looks good, send it." And meaning that, yeah, like it shows sufficient money, like send it. And so he got charged with like falsifying his bank statements or whatever. I didn't. So I was charged on the conspiracy side, like the government saying I knew he wasn't a Gennard and we went out to raise money on that. And then the aggravated identity theft side was the Petraeus email where they said that, or they claimed that I impersonated a 4-star general in a capital raise, which is total bullshit, because all I did was taking his fucking email and forwarding it to other VCs saying, "Hey, he likes it, like as a validation, would you want to come and join Series A?" The government's version of events is so aggressive, like the DOJ really goes, and the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, really only takes big cases. And so their specialized commercial crimes unit came after me and Jeremy in a big way because that I pissed off the DOJ and the FBI way back when I decided to switch sides from the FBI to DHS. When I worked with the FBI and they knew that I was also having discussions with DHS, they were like, "That's the redheaded child of like the government. Why do you want to ever work with them?" And like shitting on them and their agents. And then when I speak with DHS, telling them, "Oh, the FBI is saying like you guys are like the bastards of the government." And then they're like, "Well, at least we get shit done." So there was this ego thing on the same case that we kept on owning in on. I published my book in 2016, and I disclosed information which I didn't ask permission for the government in order to disclose the operations that I was involved with. And basically, I shat on the FBI and the way that they treated me, and also the whole DHS FBI rivalry and what happened, and also how their operations work. Like, how do they deal with an informant? So I didn't go to the government office and ask for a redaction on this is it. I just will send it. They were able to arrest 5 Iranians that was smuggling a electro tube that was going to be used on their nuclear missile program, which was directly related to my intelligence that I gave the US government, and that was through the Department of Homeland Security. That's why the FBI became so pissed, because the Department of Homeland Security took credit for the arrest. They set it all up and then prosecuted, and those guys went to prison. Those same guys that I was involved with was part of the US-Iran prisoner exchange under the Obama administration. Those are the only guys Iran asked to be released as part of the prisoner swap, and $2 billion in cash was the guys that I end up putting in jail. The DOJ knew, when they prosecuted my case, they knew exactly my background. They refused to release my files and unclassify my files for my trial. I spent 10 years as a confidential informant and counterintelligence operative for Joint Terrorism Task Force, DHS, HSI, DOD, DCIS, UK Customs Intelligence, as well as Belgium Customs Intelligence. I ended up doing a plea deal with the United States because I couldn't afford going to trial, which would have cost me $1 million. Should I have taken that path and paid $1 million and have access to that money, I would have been able to fight my case and highly likely won my case and had it dismissed. However, it was for me a business decision saying, if you're taking out the government, it's the biggest law firm in the world. They have the time, they have the resources, they can bleed you dry, they can bring in more charges, they can pick the person at the crime. It's just how they operate. So that's how prosecutors operate. So if they do a deal, and then 90% of the time, the DOJ wins their cases because they go into a plea bargain. And so they kind of work with the defense lawyers saying, okay, I got your client, but then we negotiate a lesser term and so forth. And I told my lawyer, what's my deal? Like, what would be the situation if I take a deal? He said he'll speak to the government. They came back, they said, we'll drop the AG ID charge because they didn't have this. It's a shitty charge. It would have fallen flat in trial. And we'll drop the AG ID. And we will charge you for conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Not even committing wire fraud, just conspiracy to commit wire fraud. There's a big difference. Conspiracy meaning that, like, you weren't involved, but you were planning it or you had knowledge of it. And so I took the deal, and then I got sentenced to 15 months in prison. So when I did my plea bargain, the judge said, well, one of you need to do the time. So I'm going to give you 15 months. I think the way that it was painted to me doing my plea bargain is like, hey, if you're going to get, like, we're going to push for a year and a day, maybe 18 months. You might get something in between. And so that the government asked for 5 years. The judge said, there's no way I'm giving this guy 5 years. It's just a conspiracy charge. But his partner, like, is on the run, so you have to fucking take the bait. So you have to take the punch. So I'm sending you to 15 months. And so I was told that, hey, you're going to go to a prison camp. It's like bad boy summer camp. You just have to slug it out. You've got 15 months. You'll do half of it, and you'll be home in 7 months. And so that was what's told me. So I was kind of like, okay, now I need to plan my life so that I'm not going to be with my family for 7 months, so that I need to make sure they're good. And so that was just my sole focus from my sentencing until my reporting date. However, my co-defendant, Jeremy Pittario, also took a deal before me, and he got 9 months in prison because he did a plea deal 6 months before me. And then he had to report to prison. And the day of his reporting, he was nowhere to be found. He's still on the run. Then I was supposed to be sentenced or designated to a prison within 500 miles of my house. And so how it works is you get sentenced and then you can go home, but then you're waiting on the BOP to give you a designation date and a reporting date and a designation, meaning like what date and place you need to be reporting at. So I was thinking I was going to Lompoc, which is within 500 miles of my house, and to the camp, which is like, there's no fences, there's nothing. It's like bad boarding school. I got the letter that I need to report to Sheridan in Oregon, which is 1,800 miles from where I live. And so that was the start of my journey. I didn't know what I was going to expect. I had like a prison consultant, but that didn't really help anything because these guys were in prison 10 years ago and they also didn't have any information about Sheridan. Like it was just like, it's a medium prison with a satellite camp adjacent to it. So, and it's normally where people go with narcotics issues because they had like this narcotics program there. And so it's not where white collar people will be sent to. Or a very, very small percentage of white collar people get sent there because then they take up the space of the narcotics program. Day one of prison, I flew from Los Angeles to Portland. The prison, not knowing what to expect. It's my first time in Oregon. I don't really like the area. It's just everything looks not what I like. And so I get to this facility and I see the camp there and the guys walking around and like playing basketball and like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. And then, but I need to check in at this medium security facility with all the wires and the fences and like it's just very locked down. And so I get into prison and I'm like, hey, I'm checking in, reporting, and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, the people left at the camp, so you're gonna be in the Birdcage. And I'm like, what do you mean the Birdcage? And they're like, oh, don't worry, like we'll show you. And so I'm just another number for them. And so they're like, oh, go into this holding cell, the door slams. They're like, take off your clothes, strip search. Take this jumpsuit and follow me. And so they chain me. Keep in mind, I'm supposed to go to camp, like with no chains. A camp is a minimum security facility for felons with it's like boarding school. There's no fences. There's like, you have way much freedom. You can walk off if you want, like, but then you're escaping prison. There's nothing keeping you there besides your own conscience. It's either people that came down from a high to a medium to a low and then to a camp through the prison system as they get credits, and then, or it was within a year of their release, or it's people with like a narcotics charge that's a lesser charge that sends them to a minimum prison, or it's white collar people. They chain my wrists to my waist and then do another chain to my legs, and so I have to shuffle like this upstairs. But first I had to lock down the prison because I'm a minimum security. I'm not supposed to be in a medium. Medium is, again, child molesters, murderers, like all of those type of mixed up people. So they were on a break, and so they could use the inside of the prison, like the inside of the area, and they had to lock it down because a minimum person is coming through. And so they took me up these stairs. Open up, it's not a door, it's just like a bar gate and a cell sliding gate, and they open it up and there's just one bench and a toilet right there, and they're like, oh, here's a book and we'll bring you food later, but yeah, welcome to prison. Yeah, this is not what I was expecting. Like, I was expecting going into the camp and then being in a dorm room setting with like 20 other guys, which is actually 20 other guys and not 80. And so, like, I was expecting a softer landing. So I had a hard landing on my first night in prison. So it was just me. I was separated from the rest of the population because I'm minimum and I'm going into a camp. And so these guys then broke again for their break when I was transferred back, and everybody would come knock on the door and like, hey, what you're here for? And like, are you like a chomo, which is child molester, because I'm separated. Now, like they want to know like what you're here for, because if you're a child molester, then you already have a target on your back. I'm like, no, I'm a white collar criminal. And so it's just this chaos and fluorescent light, and like it's just this noise, like this humming noise of like people from all over the world and coming to your door and like knocking with cups on the like rails and going up and down. It's just fucking guys just acting weird. I was scared that first night. I was like, this is not what I signed up for, basically. Like, this was not my expectation. Like, I was totally taken aback. So the next day, I get processed at lunchtime to the camp. And so take off my jumpsuit, take off my cuffs. They give you a different color, like clothes to wear, pants and shirt, not a jumpsuit. And they're like, oh, just walk down there with your paperwork. And so walk down the road, check in at the camp. It's like boarding school. Like I was in boarding school for 6 years of my life. And so immediately it's segregated by race. So the guy that's the head of the whites come up to me, is like, hey, obviously, who do you run with? I'm like, no, like meaning are you white, are you islander, are you black, are you like Asian? So there's all this different, because that depends where you sit during your like lunchtime or dinner time. And it's also where like everybody's segregated in their races, which I found very interesting as a South African coming from apartheid into a prison system, which in the US is just segregated specifically by race. And so got my bunk, lower bunk. It's like also it's room for 20 people, but there were only like 12. So it was spacious. Like I had my little cubicle, and like that separate toilets and like closed showers. So it was just like a bad boarding school from like the 80s. And so that's kind of where my journey started in prison. I was there when I hit my 6th week in prison, everybody had cell phones. So again, different prisonomic system. This time it works with Western Union or putting money on somebody's books. So again, you get a phone call. You can call your family saying, hey, send money to this guy or to his family, or Venmo or Cash App. And then you can buy anything in a camp. Like you can order Uber Eats, and somebody will bring it. Uber Eats won't deliver it, but somebody will go, they call it Uber Eats, but somebody on the outside that somebody knows will go grab burgers, and then they'll put it close to the camp, and then they'll have guys running to the fence line. It's like a small fence at night, and they'll go grab the food and the soft drinks, and then they'll bring it to you. But you pay like $30 a burger. Or you can order Amazon, and on these guys' phones, you order Amazon, it goes to their delivery address on the outside, and they'll do these drops every night, these Amazon drops, and they'll have runners, like the Islanders would do it. And then the Islanders will get paid for a fee, like for $200, like I'll go grab your stuff. So it's expensive. It's extremely expensive to be in prison, because if you want to live like a cushy job, then you can go grab your Amazon, you can have burgers, but it's going to be, you have to have money. And you have to buy a phone, like a normal, like an iPhone, it's not there, like maybe an iPhone 5, but you'll pay like $1,000. And so I got a phone, like everybody in my cube had a phone. And so you get your phones, like what they do is they give it to you after 5 p.m. or not, like they need to hide it in the vents. And so these guys, then that's the blacks, they do that. So the Islanders do the running to the fence, and then the blacks, you pay them to hide your phone, and they get up in these like crevices, and they hide all this stuff everywhere in prison or under the toilet, or open up like the pipes and put it in there. And then every night, like your group, that you have your guy that hides your phone, and then they bring it to you, and then you work, because after 5 the guards only, and then they have lookout guys, so you also pay for that. If you have a phone, you have to pay a lookout fee, and so they have somebody that's on the lookout, and then if a guard comes, then they'll call something, and then everybody knows they need to hide their phones. You just can't trust anybody there. Like there's like you would guys will price gauge you like on an Amazon delivery, or like if they make food for you or whatever, but that's just as far as it goes. Nobody is gonna shake you down for anything. You don't have to pay protection money or anything like that to other people. That's more your medium and your eye type of a prison system. Then 6 weeks into my time at camp, everybody were on their phones, and all of a sudden the lookout guy just screams that, I don't know what the word was, but it means that, again, this team is coming, like they're doing a raid, and they're looking for phones. And so all the guards just swarm this unit of us, and they're coming in, and I have my phone, it was like supposed to be in the vent, and I have it on me, and I walk past so what you do, you just, they can't do anything if it's not on you. So I walk past the trash can and I dispose of it. But they block the front side, and everybody in there, in that unit, then they got everybody else's phones in my cubicle. And because I was in the cubicle, like we were like 5 guys, they said, all of you are going to the hole. And so I only heard about the hole, which is at the medium prison, which is the special housing unit, is basically solitary confinement in a medium prison. Like people come in and out of there, like you go there for disciplinary reasons if you get caught with a phone or contraband or narcotics or anything else that there might be. If you break a rule, you go to the hole, and you're there normally either for, you have a disciplinary hearing and they tell you like you're gonna stay here for this long. But you might wait fucking 30 days for your disciplinary hearing from being in the hole. And so immediately they take me and these other guys and then take us to the medium prison, which is next door. And they tell us, you guys strip, and they put orange jumpsuits on us. So these guards that work there are such trashy humans. They feel like they have control and they have power, and you're just like nothing. And so they treat you like absolute trash. And they said, okay, so you're a camper, so we can't put you with anybody else over here because we don't have any campers that's right now that's in this unit. So the other guys from the camp, they put them in another, and there's 2 shoes, and they put them in the other one, and then it was already full, and so they moved me to the medium one. And they said, well, we have to put you in solitary because we can't mix you with the other prisoners. And so they put me in solitary, and it's like pink light in these corridors. And they, again, you're cuffed to the hands and the waist and the feet, and you shuffle through, and they open up, and it's a door, but the door only has like a window like this, and then it's got a window, like a small little window on the backside that's looking outside, but it's frosted, so you can't see on the outside. It's supposed to be 23-hour lockdown with 1 hour recreation a day. However, at that time, the prison was under full lockdown due to a security incident. So nobody in the hole was allowed any rec time. And you get food through a hole in the door, like they open up the hole and they bring you like a plate like this and they throw it in there. And you get breakfast at like 7, lunch at 11, and dinner at 4. And that's all that you get. I was in solitary confinement for 97 days. No access to any sun. You can only tell the time by either asking the guard or by the time you get your food. And you only get a little book cart that comes by every Sunday. And then like this book cart is like it's all wrecked books and whatever, but they bring you books and you can select 2 books. And so I selected the thickest books that I can just to pass the time, because there's nothing you can do. There's nothing. Like, you're 24/7 locked down in a 5 by 6 by 8 cell. I think the first day or two, again, it's separation from your family. They don't know where you are. Normally I call every day and like, hey, I'm good. They didn't know what was happening. Like, day one goes by, they don't hear from me. Day two goes by, they don't hear from me, because nobody tells them, right? So there's no outside communication. I think by day 5, my wife called the prison and is like, what's happening? And they're like, no, he's still here. And then somebody contacted her through, I think I called her from another guy's phone or whatever, and they text messaged her saying, hey, he's in the hole. And so she didn't know what that meant. So she had to Google what's the shoe and like seeing all of these horrible stories that's happening in there. And so from a sensory mental perspective, like, you start to kind of die, that like, you're just with yourself. Like, you start to go fucking crazy. Like, it's like, for instance, the books that I'm reading, it's as if you, like, it's your only two-way communication. Like, I can remember the books that I read in the whole, like, as if it was my life. Like, you get so attached to the story you're reading that if I think back on it, I was like, but like, I was playing in that book. Like, that was like, it becomes so, it's such a mind fuck to be in that space. Normally they're not allowed to keep you in solitary confinement for more than 30 days. The worst part in solitary was the solitary. I think you can only, like, you go crazy. Like, keep in mind, it's not solitary and it's peace and quiet. It's solitary in a prison that's noisy, guys shouting to each other between doors. Like, next to me is the psych ward type of shoe. Like, there's a crazy guy in there. Like, there's guards running into these psych wards every day because this guy would shit like against the wall, or like, or he'll piss in a cup and throw it on the guards, and then they'll go in with their pepper guns and spray him, and then that chemical will go through the vents. So what, like, the other guy shouted back and forth is like, hey, like, because I'm new there, if they go in there and they start shooting with or the bear spray or whatever they use, like, take your t-shirt, wet it in the thing and put it around your mouth, because that's the only way to not get the bear spray in you. Because the first night I was there, like, they raided this guy's cell, and like, this noise, and they scream at him, like, they attack this guy and he's screaming, and just hear all the sound of assault and like screaming and swearing and like chaos, and then the spray and this guy screaming because they're hurting him, and like these other guys shouting at the guards to leave him alone, and like, it's just this chaos, and then this bear spray coming through the vents, and you're just sitting there coughing, you're like, what the fuck? And so that process, like, I try to get like a routine going, but that was very hard. Like, I started reading so fast that I would read a book like in a fucking day. I was like, I can't. Like, I need to pace myself. Like, I need to only read so many book pages a day so I can get it to Sunday. So that I need to like pace myself. Like, okay, I'm gonna get breakfast. I'm gonna, like, I had a shower in there, and then I'm gonna shower, and then I'm gonna try and do like some push-ups or whatever, and then I'm gonna read, and then hopefully by then it's lunchtime, and then I'm gonna take my time with my lunch if I do eat it. During lockdown, the kitchen is not working. The people in the kitchen don't work, so they bring you frozen. They give you sandwiches, but the sandwiches in the sandwich bag's frozen, like, and you have to eat frozen food. Like, it's fucking insane. Like, I was like, what must I do with this? And so, but you have to eat because you fucking, like, I need to get the calories. It's like going crazy in that environment is anger. Like you go through emotions, like you're angry at yourself and you're angry that you're in there. You go like frustration because like, why am I here? And like, again, like I'm here because of what I did, but I'm also not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be somewhere else. And then like sadness because you're separated from your communication, from your family, and worrying about like, what are they thinking? And like, are they thinking I'm dead? And like, so it's that washing machine of emotion every day. And that fucking makes you crazy. Like you get literally like, these guys are starting to punch the windows and they're like trying to get out. Like it's like having a caged animal. It's you're caging these guys for so long because your prison is and you're going over regulations, like supposed to be 30 days, and then I was supposed to be moved with somebody else, and which didn't happen for a long time. And then finally, after like 97 days, I still haven't had my hearing, and I'm already being punished for 97 days. And the lockdown was lifted, and this guy comes into my, like this guard, like 5 a.m., flashes the light in my face and said, "Hey, do you want to do rec time?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Get ready." And this is like, so he's coming back in a couple of hours, signs me up for rec time. They come into the thing, 2 guards, they, like, I'm a white collar guy, no prior criminal record. They, again, cuff you, waist, hands, feet, shuffle you with 2 guards, armed guards, to this yard. It's not a yard. It's 6 cages, like fenced cages next to each other. And it's in this concrete block. And so it's like, if you think of a zoo where you have caged lions, but it's like not as nice as a caged lion cage. And it's just fences, and there's another guy pacing up and down. It's probably like 20 yards up and down. And this guy walks up and down and he puts you in there. And this was the first time I saw the sun in 97 days. And I found a sunny spot, and I took off, like I zipped off my overall, and then just wrapped it around my waist, and I just sat in the sun for an hour. Being able to breathe the fresh air and being able to feel the sun on my face was such a, I don't know how to explain it. It was a relief. Like, it was like, okay, I am outside. So things are getting better. Like, okay, I've got 1 hour that I can like just sit here. And this other guy started talking to me. It's the first time I'm speaking to somebody else. I don't know this guy from anywhere. Found out he's doing 25 years on a murder that he did and a carjacking. And like, he's been in and out of the system all his life. And so he's in the shoe because he stabbed somebody in the neck like a week before. And so, and I'm sitting there listening to this guy's story as he's walking behind me, and this other guy shouts at him, and they're from opposing gangs, and they're just giving each other shit. And so the guards walk up and down, and they sit there and they just look at you like you're freaking meat. Like it's so inhumane, it's ridiculous. There shouldn't be any special housing unit in any prison in the US, ever. I don't think you can get lower than just being by yourself for so long. Right? It's like going through those emotions, Groundhog Day every day, not knowing when is my hearing, not having any information. I didn't know what's going on in the outside world. And Trump got assassinated, and assassination attempt. Biden dropped out of the race. Like, all of these new stuff that normally I'm like on top of every day, and I had no idea what's happening in the outside world. I didn't know if my family was fine. Like, I didn't know that, like, what happened. Like, has anything happened with the kids? Like, are they good? Like, it's as if you're dead. Like, it's like, that's the emotion that you feel because you're so cut off from the outside world. So the other thing that they give you is a Bible. And because I had all my time, I read the Bible back to front probably like 3 times. And so it took me back to the time I was in prison in South Africa, and with that prison guard and talking to me about prayer and going through. And I think that really centered me, and you can request paper, and you can actually write letters to your family. I wrote letters every day, and the letters never arrived. They just destroyed the letters. So you have to buy like a stamp, and I wrote letters to my kids every day, and they told me no, like it was sent, and like it's still this day they never received it. And I think they're getting updates from me like I'm fine, like whatever, like just know that I'm fine, etc. And none of the letters were delivered. There was one letter that was delivered, and it was one that said I sent it to my wife, and it's like at the back I add like, please help me, like in capital locks. Yeah, that was probably the lowest that I was. I'm then waiting for transfer. They said, you're being transferred. They don't tell you where you're being transferred to. They just said you're going closer to which I was supposed to be originally. And so I'm waiting on I asked these guys, like, how long does a transfer take? They're like, oh, it can take like up to 6 months, you know. But I'm still all of this time in special housing unit, like in my orange jumpsuit with these crazy other prisoners, and I'm a white collar criminal. And so you get into a rhythm. It's so insane to say that, but you're in a rhythm in the shoe. But at least I had other communication with this guy. And we would go, if it's not on a lockdown, we would go to rec time together and then just walk in the sun or whatever. And so it's still the same noise. It's still the same thing every night with the bear spray and the noise and the guys shouting and like screaming and fucking craziness. It's just this, and you get used to this humming. It becomes like your mind tunes it out, so it becomes a humming, like a white noise. It's crazy. So it's like this a white noise that you just get used to. Like you don't even hear what they're saying. You just hear this like voices. And so I just got into my books the whole time and trying to get the time done. One day they called me for a medical checkup, and they said, do a urine test. And I did a urine test, and they said, oh, but there's something wrong with your bladder. You need a catheter. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, they're like, no, you're not. So she put an ultrasound. This is not the medical wing. And so they ultrasound me, and she's like, you're not, like, I'm not peeing all my urine out. Like, I'm keeping urine. And I'm like, it doesn't bother me. So, no, you need a catheter. And so they put a catheter in me, and now I've got this bag. And so I now have a catheter bag, and so they transport me from the medical unit back to my cell with everything chained again and my catheter bag. And I go back in my cell. Gary is like, dude, why do you have a catheter? And I'm like, I have no idea. Anyway, so I have to empty this bag. So Gary is at the bottom, I'm at the top. And so the toilet again is here. So when he sleeps, whenever I need to empty my bag right next to his head. And because he's right, it's so invasive, it's ridiculous. Like the guy's taking a shit when you're sleeping right next to him. Like there's no privacy, right? There's just nothing. It's just open. And so after a week, like I see this blood in my bag. And so I asked for medical to come by, and they're like, yeah, they'll come by. And like 3 days pass. And I'm like, yo, like there's blood in my catheter. Like, and the guard's just like, yeah, they'll come by. And now I'm getting like aggressive. So I tell this guard, call the fucking superintendent or the head guy, like, I need to have medical look at this. And so eventually the doctor comes by, and he looks like, because they're not allowed to open the door, right? And so he looks through the window. He's like, oh, show me the bag. And I show him the bag. He's like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's blood clots. that's normal? Like, he said, yeah, it's probably when they put it in, like, you started bleeding and, like, it's just the blood clots coming out. I'm like, dude, I need this out. He's like, oh, no, I'm not taking it out. And I'm like, I don't want this in me, so you need to tell me how to get it. He said, you can't pull it out because, like, it's air that's, like, it's inflated, so that's not gonna work. And so I go back and forth. I'm like I said, how do you get it out? And I look at this pamphlet that he gave me, and, like, you need a syringe to pull out the air, like in this vent, this valve, and then you take out the air and then you pull it out. And Gary's like, you just asked him for a syringe. And I'm like, okay, so the next shift, the nurse comes by and I'm like, can you give me a syringe? And she's like, yeah. So she said, I'll tell you how to do it. And so again, no privacy, stand there naked in front of her, trying to deflate my catheter. And I deflate the catheter and Gary's just like, oh my God, I can't watch this. And it's so painful. And now I'm pulling this cord out of my dick in my bladder. And it's the most excruciating pain that you can think of. And this nurse is just looking at you and she's just like, yeah, just keep on pulling. And I'm like, I'm fucking pulling. And this thing is not ending. And anyway, so I pull it out and it's just full of blood. And she was like, oh, I think you have an infection. And I'm like, fuck, I am. And then they pulled it. She gave me a medical waste bag and I take it and then, I take the bag, give her the bag, and then, yeah. And Gary was just like, dude, that was the craziest fucking thing that I've ever seen in my life. Like 2 a.m. in the morning, they came with a flashlight, said my last name, and shined the flashlight in my face and said, back up, you're leaving. And so I don't have anything to pack, so you just wait until they come fetch you. And so by 5 a.m. they fetched me and they processed me out and put me on a bus with a bunch of other transferred prisoners. So we get on the bus and we transferred to the airport. And so I arrived at the airport and like Michael Jordan's jet is right there. And then Conair, which is the chartered plane for the BOP to transfer prisoners of all security levels countrywide between prisons. And also high security prisoners. And so they bring the bus up to the ramp and it's just, look out the window and it's U.S. Marshals with guns, like literally lining the way that we have to walk. So they line up and then each marshal searches you, not strip searches, but searches you, turns you around, escorts you up the stairs and then puts you in your seat. And then you're cuffed like ankles, wrists and waist. And you sit there and they give you like a little sandwich bag and you're like this between your wrist and your waist is so short that you literally have to sit and eat like this if you want to eat your sandwich. It's insane. So it's a normal plane inside, but it's just got US Marshals with guns and everybody's cuffed. And then got transferred back to Victorville, which is the transit center, and arrived there, got off the plane, and it was just Black Ops as I got off the plane, lining US Army Black Ops. And I felt the first time that I was back in California, and obviously because I'm a helicopter pilot, seeing the Black Ops and working on that felt like a welcome home scenario for me. When I got to Victorville, I thought it was going to be night and day until I got inside and it's just a glorified shoe. 23-hour lockdown, 1 hour break. Nobody's allowed to go outside. And I did that for another 4 months with a cellmate. And you are allowed to walk outside your cell. And I did that from for 4 months, October to January. When you get to Victorville, they tell you, oh, you might be on the next bus. Like every week there's a bus that goes to different prisons. And so like, oh no, you'll be on the bus next week. And so like, I need to you cannot be released from a transit center. So I need to get to the next prison to hopefully put in my halfway house paperwork through my case manager and then get released. And so they keep on saying, hey, next week. And then I spent Christmas there. I spent New Year's there. I spent Thanksgiving there. 23-hour lockdown, 1 hour a day. You're allowed to go outside, inside, not outside. Because Victorville is also the most dangerous yard in the BOB. And meaning that if you as a transit, they cannot mix you with those people because it's very dangerous criminals. And so then January 6, 2025, I got told again, 2 a.m. in the morning, pack up, you're leaving, transfer to Lompoc. I didn't see rape, but I know it's happening. I saw a lot of fights. I saw, it's a violent place. I saw people pissing on guards. I saw guards assaulting inmates. I saw like stabbings and people bleeding out of their throat. And like, I saw all of that. When I got to Lompoc, I got assigned a case manager. She looked at my file and she said, you should have been home a long time ago. And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, don't worry, I'll get you out. And so immediately that day, she filed my paperwork for halfway house, but it's also a process. So I spent 6 weeks in Lompoc and then I got released. I got released February 21st, 2025, and got transferred to halfway house. So I had to spend a portion of my time at halfway house before you're allowed to go to home confinement. That was in Orange County. And so again, got there, was allowed to go home, use a car, go home every day, work from home, but I had to sleep at the halfway house. And so you're free to do, but you have, they're free to do what you want, but you have to go back and forth of the halfway house. And then after the halfway house, that transitioned to home confinement, where you have an ankle monitor. And so I had an ankle monitor for another 6 weeks before I was totally released on probation. From when I knew, like I was released on the Friday, the 21st, the Tuesday, she told you, hey, you're leaving Friday. I think that was probably the biggest relief I felt in my life when she told me you're leaving. She cried when she told me I'm leaving. So that was pretty crazy. Yeah. So she said, like, I read your file, like, you should be home. She saw me as a human. She was the only person in the prison system that saw me as a human. I think there's versions of you that die in prison that you'll never be able to recover, which is good in good spots. I think you learn, you understand yourself in such a deeper level that there's nothing really that will happen in my life now that will affect me in such a way that I would lose my mind. Like I am conditioned now in a way that the world can end and I'll be okay. Like, let's go. Like, I don't think you can put me in another position that would bring me down that much. The Flying Felon show for me is to show a good side of people. Like, everybody can go through an extreme amount of trauma and setbacks and cancellations and injuries, but that climb back to success is harder than people think. And the small percentage of people that make it has an amazing story to tell. I was born in the US and then went back to South Africa. My dad became the head of intelligence in South Africa during apartheid. With that high performance, high achievement went through our whole family. I come from a family of doctors and lawyers, and my lane was picked as sports. And I became a professional rugby player at a very young age. I went to boarding school at 12 on a rugby scholarship. And then that exposed me to a lot of opportunities. I was in Aviano, Italy, at the Aviano Air Force Base, representing the United States in a world championship. And we were invited by the US government to be guests at the Aviano Air Force Base. They selected 2 people to go fly on the jets with the pilots. And going into that environment is a high-performance environment. And I felt so comfortable. And I came back from that trip and I told my mom I'm not going to continue my university studies. And she absolutely lost it. And I said, I'm not doing it. And she said, you are doing it. And I said, I'm not. The next day, I went to the local airport and I walked into this guy's office and I said, I want to fly helicopters. I don't want to fly planes because it's too boring the first 1,000 hours to get to being a jet pilot and there's no work. And so I need to feel what I just felt in Italy, but I want to do that for the rest of my life. And I said, how can I do it? He said, do you have $50,000? And I'm like, no, but I can work. He was so interested in this athlete walking to his office saying he wants to fly helicopters. He said, okay, I've got a job for you this weekend. If you can fulfill that job this weekend, then we can talk on Monday. And obviously I fulfilled the job. On that Monday, I became the sales manager of that company. And at a very young age, I sold 30 to 40 helicopters a year. And I got into a lot of money very quickly. I felt that everything that I touched in that hangar or with the client turned into gold. And I was under this constant high from being under that pressure, but also achieving every milestone that I set for myself until I got an email. And that email was from a guy in Iran. And he said, I want to buy 15 helicopters from you. I replied and I said, absolutely. And he replied and he said, when can we meet? And a few weeks later, I ended up in Tehran. At that stage, I knew that I had a geopolitical advantage being in South Africa and dealing with Iran. South Africa has always been supportive of Iran. And I knew that it was not as if I'm in the US and selling US goods directly to Iran. I knew that there was a way. When I arrived in Tehran, it was extremely interesting. It's you're flying back into the 70s. Everything was left after revolution, just like that. Sanctions that blocked them from having new cars, new buildings, anything. It's such contrary to flying from Dubai into Tehran, where you have opulence and everything out of Dubai and you fly into Tehran and you're back in the 70s. And so I was riding in this little old 70s cab and this guy was just dodging traffic and you go over this overpass and you have this massive building on the side and it's got the US flag painted on it and it's got like flames at the bottom. So it's a burning US flag and it says, "Down with America." And I was looking at that flag and the reality of my situation hit me. And I was like, you're an American citizen. You're in Tehran. And so I knew there was like an instinct that came up and said, but it was a good instinct that came up and said, something's good is going to happen from this. And so I went to the hotel and I met with this guy and he was so inviting, so hospitable. He introduced me to his family and we drove around in his little Peugeot in Tehran but he was extremely connected. And I realized that he's not a normal broker. He is connected with the top ranks of the IRGC. The IRGC is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Some people refer to it as the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, but it's actually a section of the Islamic movement. I was in these boardrooms and these people asked me, can you get this? Can you get that? I was propped up as this savior coming into they were really struggling in the aviation industry in Iran in getting parts and keeping their planes up and being able to transfer crews from their oil rigs back to shore and using helicopters, and they couldn't keep them up. My trip evolved from helicopters into fixed wing, into can you support us on this oil and gas project, and can you get this? And this guy was just like the showman, and he's just like, I've got the guy, and he's on the phone, he's like, I've got this guy. And so we had hundreds of meetings, and on the plane back, I was looking at this order list that I received and all my notes, and it was $2 billion in potential business. And I thought to myself, I have to figure this out. There was a thing in me that I wanted to figure it out for them because they were so nice to me. And it was such a conflict because Iran was seen as this bad person. There are definitely very much bad people in Iran, and it's run by a very bad regime. However, the people on the ground are the nicest people you will ever meet. And I wanted to help them. So I got back to South Africa and I had to figure it out. And so I went to my dad and I met with him and I said, I was just in Tehran. And he said, you were where? And I said, in Tehran. And he was like, are you out of your fucking mind? And I said, what do you mean? Like, I got all these orders. And he's like, you are a US citizen. And I said, yeah, I know. And he's like, you are going to contact the US embassy today. And you are going to ask for the legal attaché. And you are going to tell them where you were, who you met with. And then you're going to come back to me. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, if you continue on this path without doing what I'm telling you, you're going to end up in prison. The year was 2007. I reached out to the US embassy. Locally, I reached out to the US consulate. A few weeks go by and I got an email back. And she tells me, I want to meet with you at the US consulate at this time and date. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And so I walk into the US consulate and I have this big burly guy, Marine, and I said, I'm here for this person. And I go through another security check and another security check. Finally, I ended up in like an interrogation room. And I was like, it's strange. It was just like a year for a meeting, but I'm in an interrogation room. So she walks in with two other people and she introduces herself and just asked me a bunch of questions about my trip. And she said, okay, thank you. We'll be in touch. And I'm like, that's weird. They didn't like, I just gave them information. They didn't ask any questions. And a few weeks passed and she said, oh, we have to meet with you in Pretoria, which is the capital. I meet with them in Pretoria and now it's more people. And so she's like, I'm going to be straight with you. Like, I'm from the CIA, but you're a US citizen. We ran your history and you're out of our jurisdiction. We cannot deal with US citizens abroad. Although we deal internationally, you're full under the FBI. And this information, these two people over here are from the FBI representatives, and you'll be working with them going forward. This was a meeting of understanding what my networks were, understanding who the people involved were on the other side sending the emails. As the weeks progressed and the months progressed in this dealing with the US government, but also dealing with the Iranians, they would send me copies of passports, they would send me information about the companies abroad, and I would be getting wiring information, company information documents, passports. And so I started walking into my meetings with all of this information and packages, and they would like very much be very interested without showing me that they're very interested. For me, initially that was fine. I didn't feel that any of my actions were betrayal on the Iranian side, because if they were going to give me people to deal with, that was part of the IRGC in order for their uranium enrichment program. It's on them to be that stupid in order to try and get me to be involved in their program. I get back from Tehran and then I have to prove to the US that I actually have the right people in Iran that are busy with sanction busting, and I have to prove to the Iranians that I can actually deliver aircraft and parts to Iran through the height of the sanction busting era in the Obama administration. And so they come back to me and they tell me, we have identified a helicopter in Canada. So the IRGC works in a way where they have different networks globally. And so they then tell me that they have identified a helicopter. So this company in Tehran called Helikish, which I met while I was in Tehran, they said they've identified a helicopter. They have a front company set up in Canada. They want me to handle the logistics to deliver it to Tehran. And so we put the wheels in motion, exported from Canada to South Africa. I only had a 2-week period in order to import it, export it, and deliver it back into Tehran for that contractual period. And so we get an air freighter from Canada, we deliver it to Johannesburg. As soon as it arrives in Johannesburg, in South Africa, the helicopter got damaged in flight. And so now we're sitting with a problem because we cannot export a damaged helicopter because I won't get paid if the helicopter arrives there damaged. So lodge an insurance claim, quickly take it down, truck it to a repair station. They do some sheet metal work, they fix it up, it's not major damage. Get another air freighter, a Russian Il-76, to export it to Kish Island. Again, I have to get a Russian aircraft to go into Iran because no other registered aircraft will fly into Iran. And so I get this Il-76, pay for the air freight, and load it up, and there goes the aircraft. And so I'm waiting in this hangar, empty hangar, and pacing around, waiting for the aircraft to eventually arrive in Kish Island in Iran. And so I watched it on the tracker, and I get a call that the aircraft had to turn around because they had a mechanical issue. And so they were halfway across Africa. They turn around, come back to Johannesburg, land. I have to let them know, listen, we had to turn around. And they were like mad. They were like pissed that like we had this issue, first issue and then second issue. And I was thinking, is this like a sign for me to not proceed with this? The aircraft got back. They had to fly an engineer in from Russia to fix their aircraft. He eventually arrives. We have to get him a visa. We had to arrange all of that very fast. Again, call people that I know at customs. And he arrives there, he fixed the aircraft, and eventually day 13 of the 14-day period, they leave and they deliver the helicopter to Kish Island on the 14th day. So from a personal point of view, huge relief, major goal achieved. Now effectively did my first sanction busting transaction and also showed the US that I can evade their own sanctions, and showed Iran that I can deliver a helicopter during this extreme sanction period during the Obama administration. From the US perspective, I was very excited. I think they were very surprised by the way I structured things in order to get it through and evading their sanctions. Like, I was living proof for them. Like, this is how I'm doing it, here's your sanctions, and this is how I'm getting around it. And so they had all the information, and they were very much I would say like subdue excitement, but I knew that they knew that they had something. As I keep on delivering all the information and the passport copies, I know that at their end, they're building a whole network of who's involved because they have other information I don't have access to. So looking back, I was just this little chess piece in the bigger US government puzzle that they're solving on Iran. I felt like the star player, like I delivered slam dunk, like golden boy, like making money, both sides, like fuck you, you can't touch me, like invincible, because I'm committing a crime with approval, and on the other side, like I'm conning these Iranians saying like I'm part of them, and fuck the US, but I'm a US citizen operating in Iran. And so yeah, that was like kind of the thrill of experiencing, and what followed was multiple deals, parts and aircraft, and like helping other people setting up sanction busting structures and through Europe. Eventually, that the CIA got involved in a bust also with Helikish, because they then thought they're going to be smart and circumvent me to buy their own helicopters out of Israel, and which I was in Israel to inspect those helicopters. They circumvented me, purchased it themselves, took it through Spain in Europe, which is fucking big no-no, and then tried to send it to Iran. They all got arrested in a CIA bust, and this guy from Helikish had to spend years in confinement in Spain, and so just proved to them that they shouldn't fuck around, because the way that I had was a successful way, and that's the way that I delivered parts. So multiple deals followed, and from me having this reputation of delivering and solving complex problems in logistics and sanction busting, other opportunities from other agencies arose. And that came from UK, British Customs Intelligence, as well as from Belgium Customs Intelligence. All I passed to commit a crime under instruction. So I cannot go on my own and smuggle 10 tons of cocaine. Like, they give you specific instructions for this transaction. It gets approved by the DOJ that you can go and you can commit this crime on behalf of the US for the purpose of national security. So as the Iran opportunity grows, I have to send out more parts, more aircraft, and I have, like, doing onesie twosies to Iran is fine. You can do that like undercover and pay a guy here and pay a guy there. But in order to do big transactions, I had to get a bigger blessing from the South African government. So I make a few calls and I get introduced to the advisors of the then Vice President of South Africa. And they said, no problem, we can help you. We can set up a meeting with Mama Gugu. And I'm like, who's Mama Gugu? No, it's the Vice President's girlfriend at the time, which became his wife. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's pretty close enough. I think we can work with that. They set up a meeting for me. I relay the information to the US Embassy. They said, okay, you're going to record this meeting. And I'm like, no problem. They give me a digital device. And I go to the meeting, walk into this restaurant. The two advisors are already there, and we're waiting for Mama Gugu. So Mama Gugu arrives at this restaurant. She sits down, and I brief her on what is required. So I need their blessing in order to export multiple aircraft and parts to Iran to support their regime. And she said, it's not a problem. We can help you. We can bless this transaction, but it's going to cost you $10 million. I then said, no problem. We can get that done. I'll get back to you. So that meeting with the simple request of doing a recording for the US, little did I know that from a simple bribe request, that would be the downfall of me in the year coming up. The recording got delivered back to the US Embassy. A year later, the South African elections were ramping up. The vice president was running for president, and the recording got leaked to the Sunday Times newspaper. It could only have gotten leaked by the US Embassy. It was obviously leaked beforehand, because I got contacted by this reporter, and he was like, are you Barry Oberholzer? And I'm like, yes. And he said, I'd like to meet with you. And I'm like, why? He's like, we have a recording of you, and I want to verify that it's you, of a request of $10 million to support exports to Iran. The newspaper headline was, nothing for Mahala. Mahala is a South African term for free. And it was this big diagram of a helicopter in Canada, like with this trade route to South Africa and then exported to Iran. My picture, her picture, like the two advisors' picture on the front page. This massive front page article. You flip it over, then page 3 and page 4 has like more diagrams of stuff. And then this one other article, headline was like the spy that came in from the cold. Very next day, I get a call from the South African Police Service General from Crimes Against the State. Again, no idea what this unit is. After further investigation on my part, it is the unit that investigates treason against South Africa. My phone rang nonstop that day. Like, I didn't know, like, are you a spy, and like, what's happening, and are you going to be okay? Lots of people were concerned that, like, you just fucking cut the red wire, dude. Like, you need to get, like, the journalist that wrote the story is like, if I have an advice for you, go to Switzerland for 3 months and change your phone number. And I was like cocky, and I was like, no, like, I've got the back of the US government, like, you can do shit. And so I had this attitude of just like bawling my way through it. Like, I had a false sense of security. After the news article, I have a trip scheduled to meet with the UK customs intelligence people on a cigarette smuggling ring that I'm busy with on an export of cigarettes from Dubai to the UK. And I have this scheduled meeting with them, Dubai, they pay my ticket. I get to the airport, check in at the Emirates counter, and a guy says behind me, "Are you Barry Oberholzer?" And I'm like, turn around, I'm like, yes. He said, "You're under arrest." So it was him and 2 other guys, civilian clothing, and they cuffed me, led me through the airport, get into his Mercedes C-Class, like brand new. I was like, this is fucking strange. Like, why am I not in like a cop car? And why am I like chauffeured in like an Uber Black to jail? And he was on his phone the whole time, and he's like, "Hey, General, yes, we got him," and like this general. And I was like, I'm fucked. Like, I knew like this is gonna be sticky to get out of. Spent a few days in a holding cell and get released on bail. I got like rap sheet of 15 trumped up charges, fraud charges, and like it's select the person and then add the crime. Like, just pick a menu and add the crime to this guy. I was the guy. Like, I was the guy to take down. I was the enemy of the state. Like, a year goes by and I'm in and out of court, and they keep on delaying it and like delaying it. And I'm like, something like, I have to now salvage my relationship with because the US also, they take a stand back. Like, we don't know you. Like, you were on your own. We told you you're on your own. Like, we're not, nobody's coming to save you. So the FBI kind of disappears. I get arrested. I get released 5 days later. And now there's a burn notice on me, which is FBI is not talking to me. The Iranians are pissed. They're not talking to me. I need to figure out where am I at with the UK HMRC customs intelligence people, and I need to figure out where I'm at with my Belgium customs intelligence people. All non-related, all different smuggling networks, but I need to grab it and see where am I still worth something, because right now I'm worth nothing. I try and connect with the FBI, darkness. All of the people that I add on my contact list not responding. Burn notice. I contact the Iranians. 1 or 2 respond that do not know about it, but they're like, that's early deals. They're not wanting to do anything right now. Contact the UK people. They're good. Like, we know about your arrest, but we're fine. We still use you. So at least salvage something there. And the Belgians, they don't care. They're just like, yeah, we work with you guys all the time. Well, you guys get arrested all the time. It's good. And so total different like mindset. And they love felons. And so I then have about a year in between my first arrest and my second arrest in South Africa. I continue assisting the UK through cigarette smuggling out of South Africa into South Africa. These are different cartels out of Afghanistan and Pakistan that smuggle counterfeit cigarettes because it's cheaper to trade counterfeit cigarettes and the risk is less than to trade with heroin. And so the penalties are less. And so they can get seized 30 containers of cigarettes, but the penalties are not as high as like 1 key of heroin. And so that's how they do their money laundering. It was like the first crack in the family life because I was like so involved with this 2-life period, like high adrenaline during the day, come back home, oh, hey, are you, like whatever. So, and now I'm at home the whole time because I'm not allowed to travel. And the pressure on the family from things that I caused, like it's self-imposed, is becoming bigger, and like it's a traumatic event. So that's kind of like trigger number one that starts. So a year later, I get a knock on the door. My wife was busy. She had like a business from home. She had a client with her, and nobody normally knocks on my door because I lived in a gated community, so they'll call me. And I was sitting at my desk and I fucking knew, like, this is not good. And I open up the door, the same investigating officer, hey, you know me, like, you're under arrest. And I'm like, how even? Like, I was arrested a year ago, so you can rearrest me. No, we've got cigarette smuggling charges. And I'm like, I was just like, I can't even explain to this dumb fuck, like, what's happening right now. And arrest me. And I was like, okay, so it's Friday. They normally arrest you on a Friday because they want to keep you in jail over the weekend, so you can only appear on a Monday. They arrest me on the Friday. Again, I know, okay, I'll be back out by Monday. And at that stage, during this period, this is the year period, I renounced my South African citizenship. So now I'm only a US citizen. I'm still living in South Africa, but I renounced my South African citizenship. So that makes it very difficult for them now, more tricky regarding charging me and like a foreign citizen, etc. I then get transported to the jail. I get transported to jail, holding cell for the weekend, with the expectation that on Monday I'm going to do a court appearance and get out of there. I tell this guy that arrested me that obviously I'm no longer a South African citizen. You need to notify the US Embassy. And it's like, yeah, we've got 48 hours to do so. So we'll let them know on Tuesday. So I already know that this is going to be a protracted situation. I then do a court appearance. Bail is denied because I'm already there on other charges. And so I'm totally unexpectedly fucked at this stage. So they transferred me to prison, waiting trial prison. Now, I'm a white guy in South Africa going into prison. They transferred me to this area, and it's like they put me in this big truck with like 60 other people, and they just throw you in there like little cattle. And it's messy, and it smells, and it's noisy, and people shouting, and it's chaos in this truck. And this guy just drives like fucking crazy, and everybody like goes this way and that way, no seatbelts. It's just like 40 people in the back of this holding truck, but it's probably only supposed to be like 18 people. And we're transporting, the guy takes a corner and I fall over, and this like piece of metal cuts me here at my back, and I can feel the blood oozing out of there. I'm like, fuck. And so I get there, I get processed in. I'm the only white guy like in this intake of people. It was scary for me from an emotional perspective because I wasn't used to the situation. Like, I wasn't prepared for it. But physically, like, yeah, I was the biggest guy there. And there was a underlying tone of respect from the other inmates, with me being there, also me being the only white guy. And so it's normally like this class difference. But also, South Africa is world renowned for their prison gangs. And so you got the 26, 27, and 28. And immediately they ask you, which gang are you affiliated with? I'm like, I'm not affiliated. So they put you in this block that's non-affiliated. But most of the guys that are affiliated say they're not affiliated just to get out of the gang activities in prison, because gang activities in prison in South Africa is like normally gang rape or stabbing or anything like that to get your rank up in prison. And so I get processed as they walk me down this dark aisle and it smells, and it's loud. It's like, it's a third world country prison. It's like what you see on Discovery Channel. And so I get through this thing, and everybody shouts at me, and they screams, and they calling names. and I look to my left, and I see this guy like this yellow eyes, and I'm like, I just get like ice cold. And this was one of the guys, the cousin of the guy that was involved in a heroin smuggling deal that I helped busted. And they knew at that stage that I was the guy that got them busted. His name was Khan. He was looking at me and I was looking at him, and we both knew like this is not going to end well. Ranking up in prison means that there's certain leadership stages in the prison gangs or in just the gangs in general. And so if you are at 28 and you rape somebody, you get elevated to a higher position in the gang. And so if you're a 26 or 27 and you stab or kill somebody in prison, you get an elevation when you get out of prison. Like then you're like even in or outside prison, you get an elevation in rank of the gang. So I was involved in this numerical fucking chaos of 26, 27, 28, every day managing, understanding. Like I knew the gangs like from the outside, but I never knew the intricacies of who they are and what they are. They're fucking mean. These are all lower income people with narcotics convictions or murder convictions or stabbing convictions. That's like, these are like guys that they have no conscience, or they're so high on drugs, or they just have a rap sheet of murder and assault because that's just what they do. That's the biggest. And so I get into this non-affiliated cell, and it's supposed to hold 20 people, and there's 80. And so there's 20 beds and there's 80 guys. And I'm like, and there's one toilet and one shower. And I look around and like inside of me, I'm like, just, it's your mind, like your heart races to, but I have to keep calm because I cannot just fucking break down and cry. And this guy approaches me and he says, "Do you need a bed?" And I'm like, "Yes." Just said yes. And so he was running he was the head of this non-affiliated cell, older guy. And so he shouts at a few guys, and this white guy jumps off, and like, we have this little mattress pad, and he's like, "Oh, you can get up here." So it's a 3-bunk, like middle level, and the fluorescent lights here, and I'm big, and I scoot in, and it's like being in a submarine, and the fluorescent lights right here. And so he's like, "When you contact your family, that's gonna be 30 rands worth of airtime." And I'm like, "Explain that." And he's like, "Well, in South Africa, you buy airtime for your cell phone." And I'm like, "Yeah, so the airtime, they have cell phones in here. And so there must be some sort of system, because one guy's smoking cigarettes, the other guy's like eating chocolate. And so something is happening here." And that's where I was introduced to prisonomics. Prisonomics is the economical system inside of prison. So this guy, his name was Jan, and very nice old guy, but he's also a murderer. And so he's there for his like 30th time. He knows the system. Like, he's been in and out of the system since he was 13. And I got to spend a lot of time with him over the next like 60 days when I was there. And like, we became friends over time. But he learned me, how does this prisonomics work? So it's cigarettes and it's airtime. And if you get access to that, you will run this prison. And I was like, because most of these guys don't have money. And so, or the outside families don't have money. It's minimum income, low income wage people. I'm like, okay, like, I will be able to survive. So I need to figure out this system. And so over the next 40 days I was there in that prison, I started, like, they called me Whitey. And so it spread in that block. So got my bed, paid him for airtime, arranged cigarettes, and airtime, call my wife, tell her like transfer money over here, send money over here, send like this over here, like bring, like we have to get cigarettes in. And so I was starting to create my own little trade network. And very quickly, I became comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation. And so I started getting into a routine. They started bringing me tea in the morning. Like I have this guy, he would bring me tea. Like I have my little servant. And so he would bring me tea. And then they would make sure nobody else is, because there's like an open shower and like an open toilet. So like they would make sure if I want to use the shower or the toilet, like nobody's there. Like they would like, I had all these people, and then they would work for airtime and all of that. It was extremely rough being, it's a third world country prison. I'm just saying I figured out a way to survive. Like, because if not, you're screwed. Like you'll get into a mental institution. The reason why I thrive is because I'm fucking good at it. So I rose through these ranks in prison and became very comfortable with the system and being able to get the people cigarettes and get them airtime. And so it became, in between these other guys in prison, it became like a fight to have access to me. And so it was a like quarrel in between lower rank guys, and like, no, I'm gonna do this for him, like I want this. And then people started trying to scam me out of like, I can get you this, but then you need, like I had like access to a phone, and like but then they started to price gauge me on certain access or items or whatever. Like they would, access to a phone went from like 10 Rand to 20 Rand. And then that would be like 2 packs of cigarettes is now 4 packs of cigarettes. So trying to extort you, because like, what am I gonna do? Like if you're 26, 27, and 28, and you say, well, I make a request for something, and then they say, okay, but it's going to cost you, instead of yesterday's price 2, it's now going to be 4. And the prison guards started to pick up on this little system that's happening, and that came through to the warden. And so the warden called me into his office. So I was in the warden's office, and he told me, so you are causing chaos in my prison. I'm going to transfer you. And I'm like, where am I getting transferred to? Like, I'm just here. I'm sending you to the old prison. And I'm like, what the fuck's the old prison? Anyway, the guard takes me out. And now everybody knew, because they walked me through this whole quad. And they come back to my block, and they're like, what did he say? What did he say? And so everybody's like, this is like great news. Nobody's been to the warden's office. And I'm being transferred. And they're like, where are you being transferred to? And so I'm like, the old prison. And there was just this silence in this room. And everybody, like, some guy was reading, and he just looked up. And so I was like, well, and Jan said, dude, that's not a good place. It's not a good place to go. That's where they send the worst of the worst. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's just hell on earth. And so that same day, they came to transfer me, and it was like an hour ride to this old prison. And I get in there as this old stone building, like old cold stone building, and they start to process me, and they're like, take off all your clothes. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, strip off all your clothes. And so there I am, like butt naked in 20-degree weather. And this is my first of many to come in the future, strip searches in prison. And so total violation, you have to bend over, you have to lift up your balls, like you have to they just fucking just do whatever they want to you. And then like, okay, process, put this clothes on. Are you affiliated to a gang? I'm like, no. And so they put me in another unaffiliated cell. This was the first time I think I was scared after all my golden boy moments. and this power, and I was feeling scared and alone. I got processed into the cell, and completely different than what I was used to. It was also, again, there was a leader. I got a bed in between other guys, so bunk, it's like 3 bunks next to each other, moved to each other. So it's like one big bed, which was extremely awkward. And it was dirty. And anyway, this guy, again, moved into the same prison system, but it was a very strange energy. It was bad people that were there. And so it was a bad energy that was inside of that cell. In the previous prison was good people that did bad things, or people that trying to become better and not as escalated in the, like, yes, murder and all of that, but it's, they kind of turned the leaf, so to say. And the current prison they sent me to is bad people. It's just, you get that feeling of, it's just that bad energy that's in that area. Immediately I went into, I need to get out of this place and I need to figure out how to get out of this. So I was born with a liver disease, and which I outgrew, but I was on the liver transplant list when I was young. And when I take medication, it spikes my liver count that looks like your liver is attacking your body, or like there's some attack happening inside of your body. And so I went to start gathering pills from everybody. Everybody gets their daily pills if you have like some sort of situation. And so gathered my pills over time with the idea that I'm going to take a bunch of pills that they have to get me out of this place so that I can just not be here. So they have to transport me to hospital. So I asked these guys, because a guy overdosed and they took him away. And they're like, oh, it's another guy that's overdosing. And I'm like, where is he going? No, he's going to the hospital. And I'm like, and so this guy didn't come back for like 5 or 6 days. And it was like, I just need to be out of here for that amount of time. And so I start paying people inside a prison to get access to their pills. And so I start gathering like 30 Tylenols or 40 Tylenols. This was to get out of prison. This was part of my escape plan to get out of this hole that I was in. If you visualize a sensory meltdown in your brain of everything that's bad, from feces against the wall to a guy taking a piss right in front of you against the wall or in the corner because the toilet's broken, and another guy just sitting there and is full of dirt, but he's sleeping right next to you. And you have this humidity, there's no AC, there's nothing. It's just like guys are sweating in this yellow light. And it's just, I became into this mindset of like, how the fuck did I get here? Like, I got myself into this. I need to get myself out of this. And so when the other guy overdosed and they said he's gonna be away for a week, like, I had a light bulb moment saying, that's my out. I need to get out of this situation. So I started paying people to gather pills, buying them airtime, getting them cigarettes. And so their daily pills that they would normally have to take it in front of the nurse and swallow it. They would put it like in their cheek and they'll spit it out and they'll keep it. And then I'd like a little container and they'd put it in there every day. And so I was waiting until I had like 30 pills because I knew like if I take all those pills, then it'll have some sort of reaction on my liver. And that was and I just had to figure out when that time would be that I can take that. In the background, my legal case, my lawyers appealed my bail denial. And so it was referred to the high court from the magistrate's court. So higher court had to hear my appeal on my bail denial, but that process takes time. So they had to prepare that, but that's happening while I'm in this old prison. And I knew that my hearing date was coming up, and my lawyers were saying, like, you have a good chance on getting bail because the lower courts just made an error, so you should be able to get bail. So I knew that I need to get to that date. I then gathered 30 pills, and I told the guy next to me, I said, like, I'm going to take these pills. So when they ask you, did he take pills, you say yes, because they always ask somebody. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I started taking these pills one by one, and all of this, the last one that was in there, the guy just put it in. And so all the others, it was like this melted white, like all of everybody's spit that was in there. And I put it in my mouth. And the last one, the guy just put in there. So anyway, I swallowed it. And then this guy waits about 30 minutes before the guard comes around for the next round of checks. And he said, this guy just took 30 pills, but I'm still fine, right? And he's like, did you take all the pills? I'm like, yes. And he's like, fuck. And so all of a sudden, it's like chaos. He radios. And it's this, they call it the ERT unit, emergency response unit. They come in with like canine dogs and like fucking, like, it didn't happen when the guy overdosed. Like, I was like, what is happening right now? And these guys come in with like guns and canine dog, and they bust into the cell and they drag me by my collar, like over this, like, and then put their arms underneath, and they take me into this little medical unit, like probably like 100 yards. They drag me and they put me in this medical unit, and then fucking this dog keeps on barking, like it's like in my face. So they put me in this medical unit, and this nurse is just like so not sympathetic. She's like, what pills did you take? And I'm like, I don't know, like fucking everything. And because she just wants to check you off and send you back. And so she's like, do you think you take this? And like, she goes like into this list of the most severe pills. I'm like, yeah, I think I took that. I think I did that. And so, but I did starting to feel like ill from all of the pills that I took. And so they then they have to transport me. They call the ambulance and they transport me to the hospital. Yes, I was okay if I died right there. I haven't spoken about this not even with my therapist. And so this is the first time I'm recounting that experience in 11 years. My out was like, if I die now, my family would be fine. And my daughter was still young, so she would be okay. She didn't even know she was like maybe 3 or 4 years old. And my wife would be fine. I had a life insurance policy. And so I was fine with like tapping out. I had a glimmer of hope, but also when I was in that prison, a lot of people talk about escaping prison. Like that was everybody's fantasy, getting out of prison, getting into freedom. That was like drove everybody there, because that prison is not escapable. And so the only way to get out there is through medical, or if they release you. And either one of those, if you're in that prison, is not really something that will happen. And so, yeah, I was fine with dying, but also had like a 0.1% hope that I can get out of there. But at that stage, everything is just so dark. You're in the abyss. You don't think it's possible. I get to the hospital. The doctor that's there is a younger guy. He's doing his internship, obviously. And I've got my prison gear on, and I looked at him and he looked at me, and he's like, you tried to commit suicide? I'm like, yes. And he's like, normally I would have to put you in the suicide watch, but I know why you did it. And he said, I'm going to put you in a normal room. And so he transported me, took blood, he said, and then normally there's two guards with me the whole time with guns. So they chained me. They chained my ankle and my right arm to the bed. And they wheeled me into this room, and this guy came to me and he told me, he said, I'm gonna keep you here as long as I fucking physically can. And so all of a sudden I had this relief. Like, okay, like there's light at the end of the tunnel. When the guy told me I'm gonna keep you here as long as I can, I was just fighting for the next 24 hours. So, right, it's survival mode for me. Like, okay, now I made it out of there. Like, mission one accomplished. I didn't die. I'm here. I'm not under suicide watch. I'm in a normal room on my own. And so I'm here. So going through my mind is I need to just survive every 24 hours. And I need to try and extend this as long as possible. And so I get assigned 2 prison guards to watch over me 24/7. And the one that comes on at night shift, it was the same guy coming in for the same period of time. And him and I started talking about life, and it's like, why did you do it? And so I explained to him, and he just became like a friend to me. And he said he only has like a month left and he's retiring and he wants to start a church and a pastor, and like he started reading out of the Bible and praying for me. And then he said, what do you want? I'm like, I just need my wife and daughter to see them, because I haven't seen them now in like 50 days. And he's like, I'll make that happen. So he calls that warden and he's like, okay, like I'm gonna go out of, like, the warden then comes. He talks to me, way better guy than the other warden. He's like, okay, I spoke to this guy. He asked me a favor. You have 1 hour. And so he calls my wife. He's like, what's her number? He says, like, your husband tried to commit suicide. He's in the hospital. You have 1 hour. So she rushes there, and this guard, no, he has to stay there, obviously. And so I'm tied to this bed, and he takes the blanket and he puts it over where I'm tied to the bed so that my daughter can't see it. And they come in, and it was just like, okay, I'm gonna be fucking fine. And so they just sat there. She cried. My daughter wasn't like sure what's happening. Nobody said anything. And this guard was just standing there like watching over us. And then she left. I think I felt like a sense of guilt when I saw her, and like she broke down. And seeing my daughter there, and I was like, did I make the right decision to break out of prison to see them, or just get out of there mentally for myself? But now I imposed more trauma onto her for that. I then felt, okay, it's like a re-energized, I've seen my people, I'm gonna be fine. My court date's coming up, and I need to push it to then. The day before my hearing, the doctor said that I kept you here the longest. Your levels are good. The president is already asking me for your test results to make sure you're good. I need to send you back. And so the next day was my court date. They released me back to the old prison, and I come back into my cell with the same people. And my court date's the next day. It's a Friday. And my time was like 9:30. I'm not going there, but my lawyers are there. And so there's a cell phone in the cell that everybody shares. And I'm waiting on this call. And it's like stormy outside. It's raining. The wind's blowing. It's cold. And because I just spent all this time with this guard, right, praying for me and reading out of the Bible, and he's gonna start a church, and he's got this like very like filled with the Holy Spirit type guy. He's like he doesn't have a lot, but he's like so full of faith. And he was very much like on prayer and prayer and prayer and prayer. And I was in between these 2 guys, and there was this broken window with like the bars on it, but it was pissing down with rain. And this wind came through, and I was just saying, God, like, if you're there, like, get me out of here today. Like, that's all I said. That was kind of my prayer. And at that time, there was this sunshine ray, like this ray coming through our window, and the sun was just like on my face. And I'm very much connected to that in my experiences of like being outside in freedom and the sun. And the sun, in this dark clouds, the sun was on my face. And this guy next to me is like, dude, your face is lit up. And I'm like, yeah, the sun is shining. I'm just the angle of my bed. And he's like, that's the weirdest thing I fucking ever seen. And just like this crazy nutcracker, like hyped drug guy is like, think he's hallucinating. And 2 hours later, I call my brother and he said, they gave you bail. I'm on my way. And so he then came to the prison. He had to go through this whole paperwork thing. And so he picked me up and we drove back home, and we didn't talk for like 2 hours. He just took me home and I got home. My brother and I have a complicated relationship, so I felt like he kind of betrayed me in this whole process, but he also was the one to pick me up from prison. And so we just didn't say anything. It was just like, he was there, but he wasn't there type of thing. And felt like he was forced to pick me up. And so I just had a lot of emotions and I didn't want to share it at that stage. And so he just took me home, and then I got home. I always have at least 4 dogs. And so I got home and all these dogs were jumping up on me, and I was like skinny and gaunt. And like, I think I still have a picture of me coming home that day, and my daughter came running and Monique was there, and like, we were just like us 3 and then 4 of our dogs just like on this couch on the patio and just like enjoying the sun that came through during the storm. Felt very light, but then only for a moment, because I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here, out of South Africa. I get out of prison, get released on the Friday. The Monday, over the weekend, I was like, I need to get out of here. Like, I need to get out of here because this is not going to end well for me. And I make contact with my Department of Homeland Security contact. They're aware, like, I'm still sharing information on stuff that I was working on. I tell them I'm back out. They're like, okay, cool. We're working on some stuff. Before that arrest, I was already working on stuff with Department of Homeland Security. And then there was like this 57-day of blackout. And then they obviously knew through the embassy that I was arrested because they got notified. And then they knew I was not in contact. And then I made contact again. I had this email address I had to log into. And then in the drafts folder, they'll leave messages. And so I went into the drafts folder and they said, we're aware of your arrest. Contact us when you're back. And so I re-established contact with them. They said, we know your situation. We're working on something, without getting any specifics. I didn't have a passport. It got seized. Both my passports got seized during my arrest. And obviously I wasn't allowed to travel outside of the country. And so while DHS was working on whatever they were working on, they said they were working on some stuff in the background for me. A couple of months later, they said, you need to go to this address at a different consulate in South Africa and get a passport. You need to get visas for the other people that's traveling with you. And you'll contact this person when you get there and they'll arrange everything for you. And I traveled to that area. I met with this person and they gave me my US passport, and the other person who was traveling with me, they gave her a visa, and they said they'll be in further contact. Let us know when you have the passport and we'll be in further contact. And I said, got it, I have it, I'm waiting on the next steps. Between back and forth of sharing information, they said, you need to be ready to leave at any time. Like, you need to be sure that you can leave within a 24-hour notice. And so I was telling my wife, like, we need to be sure, like, we need to move within 24 hours when we get the call. And she's like, is that a week? Is that a month? Is that like 6 months? And she's like, I'm like, I don't know. It can be tomorrow. It can be in a year, but we need to be ready. And so I get an email 2 months later saying, tomorrow you need to be at this address, at this time, at this airport, at this town. And it was 5 hours away from me. And I was like, fuck. And I told Monique, we need to pack. We're leaving tomorrow. She's like, what do you mean we're leaving tomorrow? I said, I told you we're leaving, like, you need to be ready, we're leaving tomorrow. So at that time, we were prepared to leave. So we were staying in like Airbnbs. And so we had this long-term Airbnb, so nothing in, all of our stuff was already in storage. Like, we were ready to go with only our suitcases and our dogs, but our dogs couldn't go. Then we couldn't tell anybody that we're leaving, but I had to get there. So I called my brother, and he knew what work I was doing. And he told me, I said to him, I need to be at this address tomorrow night. And he's like, okay, no problem, we'll take you. We rented like a van, picked us up, and next morning we left for the destination. And I still wasn't sure. Like, I only got that one email. Like, I followed up saying, are you sure? Like, whatever. Like, I asked a bunch of questions. Nothing. And so I get to this town, and there's like only 2 hotels there. And so we get there. Our flight was the next morning, very early, first light, the departure was. And I get... and there's only one airport in this town. Like, I go to the check-in counter, and right in front of me is this air crew checking in, and they start talking, and I could tell it's American air crew. And they're like, they start talking with the reception manager, and they're like, no, we're only here overnight, leaving early tomorrow morning. Like, and you have a driver for us and whatever. And I knew that's my people, but I'm not allowed to speak to anybody. So I check in right behind them, and I turn around and I tell my brother, can you just drive to the airport and see if there's an actual plane with this tail number? And it's like a 10-minute drive. And he said, yeah. And he drives there, and he tells me, yeah, it's there. And I was like, holy shit, this is Gulfstream. G4 is on the run. It's the only, like, there's all these small planes, and it's got this G4 like on the tarmac, and it's not an international airport. I'm like, fuck, how are we gonna get customs clearance to get out of this place? That night didn't sleep, and 3 a.m. woke up everybody, went to this airport. The airport's closed, right? But there was this guy that just opened the gate for us, and we and the air crew get in the aircraft, and they're doing their pre-flight stuff, and the tower opens up, I think at 6 a.m. it was. And we load our stuff up, and the airport manager is like, well, what are you guys doing? You cannot just like load your bags. It needs to be screened. Like, it's like, but because it's a private jet and it's the small town airport, the people are like overwhelmed with like, who's these people inside? And like curiosity, and like, I'm not coming out. And the air crew is kind of like negotiating with them. And this guy like, no, these bags need to be scanned. Like, I'm going to lose my job. And the bags. And like, I get out, I'm like, how do you want me to scan this? Like, he's like, oh, no problem. Like, you're South African, so okay, I'll go get like the mobile scanner. At that stage, I thought, okay, this is going to be easy. Like, we're going. Like, it's like we're flowing, like air crews here, bags are on the aircraft. First hurdle we strike that morning is this airport manager. And he's like, the bags. And I'm like, I hear him, and he's like, no, but the bags. And he's like, oh, you can't leave because the tower's not open. The guy's like arguing with him, like, we're leaving. As soon as we get clearance, we're leaving. And he's like, no, but the bags. And so I get out and I speak to him in Afrikaans, and he's like, oh, yes, sir, no problem. Like, he tells this other guy, oh, go grab the scanner. And it's like this mobile scanner. And we scan the bags, and it's 6:05 a.m. and the tower is open, and the air crew is on a flight and duty time. So they're only allowed, I don't know what the flight route is, but they're telling me we need to leave in the next 20 minutes in the air, or we're going to time out on flight and duty and we can't do this flight. And this guy takes forever with these bags, and he's just scanning them one by one, and this is his only job, so he wants to do it well. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, fuck. And so the captain comes up to me. It's like, we have a problem. And I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, I spoke to the tower and they won't let us leave. And like, what do you mean they won't let us leave? He says, this is not an international airport. You don't have customs clearance. You need to go to Cape Town, and then you can check out with your plane. And I can't, because I'm on the blacklist. Like, I'm on the red list. As soon as they scan me on customs, then I'll be flagged and they'll arrest me. And I'm like, and now it's like 10 minutes. I'm like trying to think what's happening. And so Monique's sitting in there, and we have a nanny with us, and Chloe is in there, and Gloria Joy. And Gloria Joy is like 6 months old. And so she's busy with the baby, and Chloe is becoming fussy. And so they're inside while I'm kind of managing. So I open up my laptop and I get a connection through my phone, trying to pull up the number of the customs guy that I knew, that I paid off in Johannesburg to get the Iranian planes cleared and the Russian guy's visa done. And this is now like 6:15 in the morning, and now I have 7 minutes. And I call him, and thank God he answers. He was on night shift. He's at the office. And he's like, hey, how are you? Whatever, why are you calling me so early? Very nice. I'm like, I need a big favor. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what's your wiring information? And he's like, it's the same as the last time. I said, I'm going to send you money. I need you to send an email to this air traffic controller and confirming that these passengers are on the manifest, they're already customs cleared. And he's like, I don't know if I can do that. I'm like, dude, I have 6 minutes. And my heart's pounding, because this captain of this aircraft is like very military. He's like, if we don't leave, like, I'm staying, like, I'm going to time out. I'm not going to do this. Like, he's becoming like aggressive. The co-pilot's already doing all the checks. The engines are spooling up. And I'm like, send the email. He's like, send the money. And I send the money, send him the confirmation. And he's like, what's the email address? And I asked the pilot, what's the email address? He's speaking to the air traffic controller. I have my phone on speaker. He's in his seat. The co-pilot's in there. I'm in the cockpit. They're saying, this is the email address through the radio. The guy types the email. He asks me who's on the list. I'm like, these are all the names. I'm like, he's like, what's the passport numbers? Go to my bag, get the passport numbers. He said, I send the email. And I'm in the cockpit with my speakerphone, and the captain is sitting. They're ready, strapped in, ready to go. The air traffic controller said, whatever the tail number is, you're clear for takeoff. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I go back in my seat and I strap in and we take off. This is the first time for me in a private jet, and it's a fucking G4 at that time. It's like the latest, greatest aircraft. And we take off and the sun just rises, and like South Africa's coastline is below me, and he banks. And I like still like holding my breath. I'm looking at this air map on the screen in front of me, and like I'm waiting until we cross the border on this screen, and this plane just fucking treaks, and this guy's he's gunning it like he's flying like Top Gun, getting out of there. And I wait and it's like 2 hours, and we hit the international borders, and I'm like, we're done. Like we're safe, and we're over the border. And I I never, like, the pilot didn't know. Like, we knew, but we didn't, like, we didn't say anything. And we went on the west coast of Africa. We had to do another crew stop. They had to change crews, and we had to refuel before we crossed the Atlantic to the east coast of the U.S. When we got there, did the crew change, 30 minutes on the ground. I called my brother from the satellite phone and said, we're good. And we took off from the west coast of Africa, and I slept. I just passed out. Everybody was just like passed out. It was probably like 7-hour less crossing, maybe. I can't remember. And I woke up with the cabin attendant telling me, sir, we're going to land. You need to wake up. So she wakes me up just on final approach before we hit Miami. She said, sure, we're going to arrive. You need to wake up. And the captain tells me, hey, CBP is closing. They're going to drive up to the jet, stamp you in, just get your passports. So a white SUV pulls up with the DHS CBP logo. The air stairs goes down. She comes up on the aircraft. I grab my passport. She checks everybody that's on the passport is in the aircraft. She stamps us out. She gets back in her vehicle, and the SUV pulls away. I felt freedom for the first time in a very long time. Freedom and safety. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a load was lifted off my shoulders. And so we landed, and I had $5,175 in my account, and that's it. And now I had to figure out the next steps. We got transported by 2 black SUVs to the hotel, and our hotel was prepaid for 3 nights in Miami. We arrived like late night, early morning, like 1 a.m. And the next day, I made contact with my guy, and like, I'm here, and he just replied, he said, yes, I know, I'll call you Monday. This is my DHS contact. Then it was up to me to figure out, like, where do we go from here? So the next few months, or actually the next year, was me finding safety, security, and financial security for my family for the next year in the US. We eventually end up in Los Angeles, and I have this idea of a tech startup, which I worked on, a security tech startup. And in order for me to get around in LA, I had to get a car, but I didn't have a debit card or a credit card or anything like that. I just landed here as like brand new. So there was this app which just launched at that time, which was Turo. And I go on there, I find this Audi Q7, which is obviously big enough, and it's within my budget. And it's a peer-to-peer rental app, and they accept obviously all forms of payment at that time. So I got a prepaid debit card, and I connected with this guy on Turo, and I'm like making the booking for like a month. And I go to his house, and the guy that I connected with on Turo is called Brian. But when I picked up the car, it was Jeremy. And it was in Hancock Park. And nice guy, and he's like, oh yeah, my husband spoke to you on Turo. He's not here, but this is my car, so yeah, you can rent it, like whatever. So just did the normal Turo handover. And started doing, like, they're moving to Colorado, and with this car, and then just extending this lease with him on the car on a month-to-month basis. Eventually ended up having to buy the car from him. And I had to travel back to Los Angeles to meet with him so we can do the title change, etc. And he's like, what business are you in? I'm like, this is what I'm doing, tech startup. He's like, oh, I also work at a tech company. And, you know, I come from a wealthy family. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, my dad's Jim Gennard. And I'm like, oh. Yeah, we founded Oakley. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, he's busy with this camera company now called Red, and we're launching this phone. And so this tech that you're working on, like, I think we can do something together. I'm like, okay, well, are you an investor? And immediately my brain goes to, we have access through his family to money, but also to technology, because my technology was phone based, and I needed hardware. I needed a hardware provider, and so he became my business partner. It was a weapon detections company called X Labs, and so it was scanning people mobily for weapons through using an iPad or an iPhone. I started that company due to the mass shootings in the US and at school specifically, and the difficulty in seeing weapons on people and the systems being so big and so expensive. And so I found a better way in order to scan people for weapons. When I came to the States, I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a personal bank account. I didn't have any of those. I wasn't able to get a car. So I had to start renting, and I had to work my way through other ways to get access, to get a driver's license, to get, like, all of these things happen over a period of time. As a US citizen, there's certain things that people take for granted, like a personal bank account, a credit card, and a driver's license. I didn't have any of that. So with Jeremy, I had a business partner that had access to a family trust that could give collateral to investors for loans and to build the tech startup. And so we were running at a fast pace. We were raising money. Jeremy was providing these guarantees. He was signing a Jeremy Gennard Patorio. Like, he was the guy. People knew that his dad founded Oakley. We came into meetings with credibility. He would always give his background. People like, let's go, love the tech, let's go, let's give you money. We raised $6 million in like a year, and we went to CES. We became a Verizon partner. So things went like crazy good. And then COVID hit. Our whole technology was built on people being in masses and being able to scan for weapons technology or carrying weapons. So our whole business went to shit. When our whole business tanked during COVID, we couldn't repay the loans of the investors that Jeremy signed surety for. As we were going into the final phase of fundraising at the end of 2019, there was a VC fund that was going to give us a bunch of money to complete our technology to go into production. That VC did due diligence on everybody in the company, personally. They came back to us and said, Jeremy's story doesn't really check out because Gennard has 3 kids or 4, and like, where does Jeremy fit in? Because he only has 1 son and 2 daughters. And his family tree doesn't check out. And I asked Jeremy, I called him, I said, hey, these guys just personally are checking you out, but like, apparently there's like, how many kids are you? Like, just as and he became very cagey. And he's like, yeah, well, it's just because I'm gay, and like my dad and I had a big falling out, so he doesn't want to talk publicly about me. And I was like, okay. And I was very stupid because I'm a guy that knows everybody that I do business with. And I just went into this blind with him. That January, before COVID hit, we had a meeting with another investor group, and that's already invested. And we had a meeting at our office. And this guy's sole purpose was to corner Jeremy because he spoke to Jim Gennard the night before, because they had other business dealings. And he was fine with me, but he wanted to tell Jeremy, I fucking know you're defrauding these people because you're not a Gennard. I didn't know what was coming at that meeting. This guy just said, listen, my partner is going to go at Jeremy. And we had this meeting, and he grilled him, and he told him, oh, but your dad said this and your dad said that. And he's like, and he just went white in his face, like a white sheet. He got up and he stormed. He told the guy, like, fuck you, you're not going to talk to me like that. It's my family and I won't be disrespected. And he left. And me and the investor looked at each other and he told me, I told you. Like, I told you this guy is like, he's like slippery. This is now the second time in the span of 30 days that an investor group has flagged Jeremy. And so I then called a guy in Belgium that I know from my intelligence days. I said, can you do a proper international background check on Jeremy Pittario? And he was like, yes, no problem. It took him a few weeks. In the meantime, COVID hit. And so we had to adjust everything and try and repurpose our company. But I was still dealing with the Jeremy problem. He called me back. He said, I sent you an email. And the email showed that Jeremy was not the son of Jim Gennard. He's the nephew of Jim Gennard. So all the stories of the Gennards and being in Hawaii at their compound and showing pictures, he was invited as the nephew, but he was the cousin of Jim Gennard's kids. So he was at times invited to the family gatherings. So showing me pictures, being at their compound and at their houses in Hawaii and in LA and Orange County, and showing me, like, validating that he is a Gennard without me asking. I think I was angry at myself for exactly that point, that I know people very well. And how did I not see this? Like, I had to track back and see how did he con me on being a Gennard. But it was, I made a mistake by rushing into this company and wanting to prove to myself in financial security, and like I was moving at this fast pace, that I overlooked a very critical, important point. My options at this point was I had to disclose it to the board of the company, but not yet to the investors, because now I was tangled in what was later called a conspiracy. And I let my board know that, hey, this is what I found out. And they like, and some of our board members were also investors. So they were like, yeah, now it makes sense. But they weren't in for big money. They're like a couple $100,000 each. But very good guys. And they were like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, I'll fix it. And so I bought him out of the company. I called him and I just said, hey, sorry, but we're tanking COVID, but do you want to sell your shares? Because I know he was also bleeding for money, which I was like, why are you bleeding for money if you're a Gennard? And he said, oh no, my dad cut me off. Like, I only get X amount of money a year, but it's because of this gay thing. Like, I'm just gay, and like people just, he's a Mormon and he was a Mormon. And so we just have this black sheep relationship. And he said, yeah, you can buy me out. And I bought him out, removed him from the company. But this lawsuit lingered. I then got a lawsuit that this other investor that he signed the surety for is suing us, the company, and Jeremy in his personal capacity, but not me. But I was the CEO of the company. To track back, from I got to the US until this point of time, I did a few other transactions with other companies as a defense contractor. And General David Petraeus was involved in introducing me to another company called SOS International, a guy that worked with him while they were in the war. He's the former 4-star general and commander of CENTCOM of the US Army, and he is also the ex-director of the CIA. He then worked at KKR, or he's still working at KKR as a director. He was also actually charged with felony and for the treason, and it became a misdemeanor overnight just because he was who we are. Anyway, his felony aside, for treason in the United States, he introduced me to several people to make business deals, which actually just introductions, and all those deals were not big deals, but they succeeded. And so him and I had this back and forth on LinkedIn, like, hey, contact this guy, and then on email. And so I sent him our pitch deck, and I said, hey, will you guys look at this? And after a few days, he replied to me and he said, hey, great technology, love it, but this is not the product for us as you are too early, because they only invest, like you have to have a minimum revenue stream and they only do like 20 million and up. I used that email, I forwarded it to another potential investor validating our product. Just forwarded that email and then used it again and forwarded that email to another investor group saying, hey, like they're not in, but it's a validation of our product. Like if we get to this mark, then they would be in. So like I had to get people on the cap table. So they might be in for a Series C round, but like Series A, I need you guys to come in. A couple of months later, I get a lawsuit from this investor for default of the loan. It's against the company and it's against Jeremy in his personal name, not against me because I didn't sign personal surety. And this becomes like an issue for us because we cannot pay, and these guys are aggressive. They're coming after us. Like we're gonna really big lawsuit. It's back and forth, and like we don't have money to do like this big legal bills, and we're running out of cash, and we still need to do this product, and it's COVID. And so I get a call from somebody that I knew that said, hey, we had an investigator call wanting to confirm your company, who's the investors in your company. And I'm like, oh. And so they send me the voicemail that the guy left. He's like, I'm the investigator, his name from the United States Postal Service. I would like to talk to you about this company. And I knew at that stage, this is not good. The reason why I started the Flying Felon and why it's called the Flying Felon is that for my time I spent in prison, I had to figure out what I'm going to do when I get out of prison. As a felon, you cannot vote, you cannot have a personal bank account, you cannot have insurance, and you are also an outcast by society. As a felon, I was trying to figure out how do I make a comeback and how do I show resilience. With the felon part, the only thing that wasn't taken away from me was my helicopter license. And aviation has this tendency to draw you in, even if you divorce it for a few years. It's like an addiction. I started the Flying Felon from a resilience point of view, trying to bring stories of resilience and comeback, as well as showing the broader public that comebacks are hard, but comebacks are doable.